Leftovers have secured themselves a spot in the HGC EU, and now Heroes Hearth will have their chance in North America. My name is Solid Jake. I'm here with Jayhow as we're transitioning to the final NA Crucible game. And Jayhow, it's a highly anticipated one to say the least.
Probably the most anticipated across any region because of the names that are involved with Heroes Hearth. The likes of Krohn, McIntyre, and the return of Arthalon, former champion.
Yeah, he's, the long history playing the game. Out of it for Phase 1 here in HGC, and now making his return after Cloud9 did disband just about a year ago. But let's take a look at the Open Division playoffs for the story. You guys only see the playoff story here, but in fact, Heroes Hearth Esports won Cup 2 through 7. So 6 out of 7 cups, they had that first place spot. They did get the first place seed here from the playoffs. A dominant Phase 2 for them in the open side.
You know, when you get first place, you get to pick who you want to play, and I talked about this at the closing of last night. And all year long, Jake, or the last part of our Phase 2, all of Heroes Hearth laying down that even and death spray, letting them know they're coming.
It's a literal call out, and they've been actually called them out in the Crucible here for that play. They did go ahead and clarify that it's not just that they have their number or want their number, but they also said, look, we know that these guys don't necessarily play on the West server. That is an advantage chosen by the HGC Pro League team, but at the same time, they're hungry. They're hungry.
Everybody knows. I mean, it's not a surprise. Even in Death had the worst record in the Pro Division. They started to come on a little bit. We knew Homicidal from the Open Division in Phase 1, known for those melee assassins, things like that. We've seen some roster changes in terms of how role swaps. Now Homicidal playing the main warrior. Battery taking a step back, who used to play that. So we've seen some role swaps. They've looked better at times over the last few weeks that we had in the Pro Division. So not all hope is lost for this team because they have shown signs of improvement. However, when you only win one game in the Pro Division, somebody's like, you know,
Let's look at the standings here.
I want to play them.
To put it in perspective for you, we do have Even in Death in the 8th seed, 1-13. And that means there's been a lot of 3-0s. It means there's been a lot of hard defeats for them throughout this season. Naturally, they were in the Crucible last year. They won Open Division playoffs in Phase 1. They got the spot because B-Step disbanded, and they were immediately looked at as the underdogs. Everyone's question, can they rise to the occasion? Can they become a 5th, 6th place team and beyond? So far, haven't proved it, and now they're in the Crucible situation.
Yeah, the thing about that roster is, if you're not familiar with basically HGC scene in 2016, Battery was around on several teams that were always consistently at regional events.
For a long time.
Frozen X as well.
Yep.
You know, so you have the name recognitions that's there if you followed kind of the HGC scene before the Pro Division and everything was put together. So it's not like these are just people out of nowhere that kind of came into the amateur division. It's like, oh, who are these guys? You know, obviously they had a tough road along the way here in the Pro Division, but they're still fighting for their spot the same way that the members of Krohn and McIntyre, who were in the Pro Division before, trying to make their way back in.
Well, you know, we've said their story from our perspective. The players can speak for themselves. Let's hear what they have to say about the matchup.
Our team morale going into the Crucible is definitely a lot higher than it's been in the past, and we feel we're the strongest we've ever been. So coming into the Crucible, ending the HGC matches, we're feeling pretty good going into this weekend. Heroes Hearth as a team has had a lot of solid macro play throughout the Open, coming from Krohn and McIntyre from their experience in the HGC. I think their draft is a little bit lackluster. I think they rely too much on Wombo combo, and I think they've been able to beat a lot of amateur teams because the amateur teams didn't know how to respond to some of their decision making, or they didn't understand the win conditions of certain fights, which allowed them to have those Wombo combos in Twilight Dreams. Winning the Crucible for us means another shot at proving our worth in the HGC. We're definitely not happy with the performance that we've had this last phase, and moving forward, getting through the Crucible, it'll be another opportunity to apply what we've learned and just keep developing as a team, moving forward and trying to move on up as best as we can.
I think the morale of Heroes Hearth is insanely high. All of the players on this roster have something to prove, have come out of a situation where maybe they didn't want something to happen. So going into this Open and this Crucible and having the opportunity to prove that we are all capable of being HGC pro players is incredibly exciting, and we're all looking forward to, really showing what we have as players to the community.
Even in Death, while they are at the bottom of the HGC standings, they're not a team to be taken lightly. They've been prepping for this for a long time. They knew that they were going to be Crucible. And so if that's your mentality as a team, you're going to give it your all because you want to stay in the HGC. So here we're only prepping for one matchup for that amount of time. That shouldn't be taken lightly. I think winning this match honestly means everything to me. It's been my dream, my passion, my goal for so long to be a professional player, and having already been there, it just increases my hunger to get back there.
HHE versus EID, it'll really honestly come down to a colossus of a match between two teams that have been preparing for each other. And I think at the end of the day, our skill and our ability to play as a team will become more apparent and better than even in Death.
HHE versus EID. Gonna be a big match here, and like they were saying, they've had the time for their preparations. Now, Jay-How, if we look back to the playoffs just a few days ago, HeroesHearth was looking invincible. They won so many cups, but in the winners finals, they lost that. That means that between import support and them, we've seen some weakness. We've shown the vulnerability of HeroesHearth, and even in Death has had so much practice and study from those drafts. They've watched them, probably recreated them in their own scrims.
Yeah, Battery said it himself that he thought that they struggled. That is HeroesHearth. They struggled with some of their draftings towards the end of that, relying on the wombo combos. We've seen some pretty amazing stuff pulled off, but we've seen some good counterplays. The false dad plays in particular, whether they look good or they look great, they kind of had a lot of things going on there. But it also showed their resolve in the fact that losing that winners final, nobody expected them to have that type of challenge in front of them. They fought their way back up, came back into the grand finals, which is why it puts them here. So they have the resolve, but I think that we definitely found some chinks in the armor in the sense that they're not invincible. Everybody expected them to roll through the playoffs, roll through, come right in, take even in Death spot with no questions asked. But now we come into this weekend with a lot of questions.
A lot of questions. The first question is, what map will be played first in the series? And it's going to be Infernal Shrines.
Infernal Shrines. It's funny because this is actually the HeroesHearth Battleground. Whenever they had their map pick, first map that they would play is Infernal Shrine. So even in Death, they have confidence on this map, but I can guarantee you one thing. HeroesHearth, every time they were able to pick map, first map of the game, first map of the series, it was always Infernal Shrine. So two teams feeling confident on a neutral battleground should mean that we have a pretty good game to start this off.
Yeah, Infernal Shrine is definitely a great neutral one. Like you said, the 3 lanes, pretty standard overall for the drafts. Priority on some of the clear a little bit more so when you want that objective control. Gul'dan does see a lot of play. You were mentioning earlier the fall stat. If you guys didn't actually catch the Open Division playoffs, and when it came to the winners finals and the grand finals, we actually saw some pretty significant changes to the way they were approaching a lot of the draft. McIntyre in the winners finals was playing a lot of the secondary support, Tassadar, Rhaegar, and heroes like that, but it became less prominent as we went into the grand finals, putting him more on the Dahaka and the Malthael. And both compositions and both styles work out, right? Matt can be the flex on the half support. Arthlon can be that flex. And I'm very curious as to where they're going to land there in this tournament. It will be Ariel as the first ban.
Ariel first ban makes a lot of sense. I imagine HeroesHearth might just still go into that double support style with a Tassadar pickup. They like that. This is one of the battlegrounds to where even if McIntyre's not on that comfort style, melee style hero, that at least you have him on a hero that contributes far greater regardless of where you go. We talk about Crowan in a lot of sense. In the last part of the winners, or the grand finals that we had in the Open Division, he played a lot of Gul'dan, another hero that excels here. But with the Ariel not there, you're not sure if that synergy is something to stray away from or not. But Rhaegar obviously a solid pickup as well.
Yeah, the nice thing about Rhaegar is, like we said, if they want to put McIntyre on that, they certainly can, but also it's just a good solo support or the main support that they could put BBJ on. Also the clear, next to none with the support rosters. Gul'dan and ETC will be prioritized on the side of even in depth, just making sure to have that big range clear for Gul'dan. And ETC so highly sought after with Mosh Pit and, of course, Stage Dive being the global option.
Yeah, and it always gives you that peel protection. For a hero like Gul'dan, a lot of times people are like, well, he's vulnerable in the backside, especially pre-10 before you have that Horrify. So you can dive right onto a hero like that if you have the right composition. Rhaegar allows you to be aggressive on the shrines in particular, just due to the fact that he's got that lightning bond. He has great clear. Even if he can't get it on himself, he can throw it out onto a hero like potentially a Johanna that we've seen a lot of on this battleground, Arthas, things like that. So we'll keep an eye on that. But the Rhaegar, I think, a good start. The one thing I want to talk about and focus on is simply Crowin's hero. What does Crowin play? It looks a lot like Gul'dan. We've got Cassia, we've got Vala, we've got Greymane. And they pulled away from the Greymane during the playoffs.
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit. So with the Gul'dan off on the other side, we might see Cassia, we might see something along those lines, but instead they stick with the Vala.
Suddenly, you're looking at the supports, and Medic and Ariel have been banned. Rhaegar and Lucio have been taken. They're going to ban out Malthael as a dominant solo lane and one of McIntyre's best heroes, which to me is interesting because I don't think anyone was flexing onto Rhaegar or Malthael. Commonly, if it was a second support,
it was McIntyre.
It was McIntyre. I mean, Arthalon does it when he has to, but it's become less and less common. Yep. And now we're in a case where it's like, okay, we could ban Brightwing and then make your support situation really weird if they want to go for that. Uther is not necessarily terrible, but you know, double support has been so very common as of late. And who are you going to put with Uther at that point? They're going to ban Uther. So now you've got Brightwing left. Brightwing, Kharazim, we don't really see Kharazim in general in
Maybe
NA.
a little bit of Malfurion mixed in there. I mean,
it's not that it's terrible,
but you've got 3 supports banned and 2 picked up, so
yeah,
the support pool is a lot smaller.
I mean, do you really want Gul'dan with Malfurion? It's okay, right? I mean, it's going to be better than some heroes.
They have played Stukov in the past on this battleground in particular.
That's fair. That's fair.
You get into those choke points, you have the lurking arm going down, maybe you end up in the double support of a Stukov, Malfurion style. It does, I guess, leave you vulnerable at times. You could go flailing arm, and so far with this composition of Rhaegar, Lucio, Vala, you don't necessarily have any hard engage whatsoever. Sonya's going to be there, great shrine clear, great solo laner. It is going to be Brightwing, which means that they'll likely go into a second support. Again, whether it's the Stukov
or Malf,
or Malfurion will be most likely.
Yeah. Okay, Sonya for the solo lane. We still need the solo lane for Heroes Hearth. McIntyre could be on Dahaka, who knows. Notably, we have Vala that is Crowin's hero. Arthalon, that's still a question mark for the team. And of course, the main take for Ishbu has not been determined. When it comes to Arthalon, you do see a little bit of Chromie sometimes on this map. It's one of his more played heroes. We haven't seen the Medivh in a long time. Not sure if I'm expecting that one here. What do you think for Ishbu, though?
Well, with Ishbu, it's kind of pick your poison, right? Because he does so well on a lot of heroes. It's not that he's just this crazy, outstanding warrior that everybody's going to write home about and tweet it out. What he does is he fills a role that is necessary for his team. He understands his role in the team's play style. It's not just like he's going out making all the sick plays and everybody's following. He recognizes what's behind him.
He's the foundation.
Yes, the composition that you play with, he goes Diablo. He has a wide hero pool. And you talked about the Arthalon. It will be interesting because I believe he has played Vala in the past.
This could be Arthalon Lucio, honestly.
And then McIntyre on the other. They go with the Stukov, of course.
I'm glad we saw the Diablo because, you know, honestly, with Ishbu, like you said, he's not necessarily like Zuna played like out of his mind yesterday, right? You're going to write home about that tank play that we saw. Really good on the Garrosh, the Muradin, whatever he played. With Ishbu, though, he likes the heroes that have kind of like the snap impact, right?
Oh, yeah.
The power slide, you know, Ishbu and BBJ, their support and tank here on Heroes Hearth, played together in Phase 1 as a team called LFM. They were actually the #1 seed, but they didn't make it through the playoffs in the Crucible when it mattered most. However, the harmony between those two is really there because they like to do the roots from the Malfurion after a power slide or the Diablo Shadow Charge, and this is a great map for Diablo.
Diablo, this is the single best map, I think. Maybe Tomb, you know, you could argue Tomb, but it all goes back. I remember one of the first times I was in the scene, I was talking about Diablo as MVP Black last during the Spring Global Championship of 2016. Their dominant run, they were using Diablo on Infernal Shrines. And it's really amazing the way that they played it and the way that you could use kind of Diablo as kind of like the pivot point on there. It's kind of like the minute somebody steps anywhere near far forward, you can get that flip over the charge in. There's several walls around most of those. You can get really good value out of Diablo. you don't necessarily stay as aggressive. That's the problem that a lot of people have, is that they get a little bit too aggressive, overextend. You do have Lucio, you do have the double support for maybe the speed boost out, but for the most part, Diablo is kind of that control style hero, but a huge threat if you come into him.
Yeah, and Devastating Charge, there's so many opportunities to land that and do big damage in the late game. But the nice thing with Diablo that a lot of people think is his best part is the respawn. At the same time, once you use those souls, you're not really tanky.
You're a lot less tanky.
It's a hard balance for sure. ETC sees a lot more play, of course, as a result. But I do love that pickup in this case. I'm pumped, man. This is going to be a good series.
There's definitely a lot that we can expect from this series. I just want to see who's more nervous, right? You're on the line here, right? You're either a pro or you go back to the open division. And for the likes of Crone and McIntyre, the stakes are heavy for them. They did not choose to be here.
No.
They did not get put out by losing in a traditional sense. They are out to prove a point. How much does that weigh on you? And the same side, even in death, they have to prove a point that, look, we didn't win our way here. We won the playoffs. It wasn't the traditional style that everybody expected. There's a big spotlight on that. Like, do you deserve to be here? We're going to find out today.
We're going to find out. It is time to start out the best of 7 series, all with Infernal Shrines for the first map. And J-How, we are loading on into the blue side of Even in Death. Battery going to be on the Stukov in this case. We're going to have Lutano, one of the best assassins to come out of the open division, on that Gul'dan. Howden Yuren going to be on the Sonya. Frozen X on Brightwing. And ETC played by Homicidal as Even in Death prepare to defend their position as pro gamers in the HGC.
I don't see any sprays. Instantly, the respect there. Ishbu going to be on Diablo. BBJ going to be on the Lucio. Arthlon will be the Vala player this go-round. McIntyre on the Rhaegar. And, of course, it will be Crowan on the Greymane. No Even in Death sprays coming out from HeroesHearth here.
0. The respect. I'm glad. You know, they were doing that in the open division when you're actually facing the team. Show the respect. So we do have the global advantage. Always something that can be notable, especially if you are trying to catch up or extend your lead a little bit. Brightwing can push that envelope a little bit.
I think the one thing that stands out to me here in particular, we've seen a lot of it, in particular with the Vala builds, is the Q build into the Hungarian Arrow. This is one of the maps where I think that prioritizing the Shrine does help. The Hunger build to me is, yes, you can get that single target blow up, but it speaks to me of, we've seen solo Greymane comps, particularly on BOE and Infernal Shrines, to where if you lose the objective, Greymane doesn't cut it. Right? Yeah. He has to get into a position to where he either gets stomped on here or something along those lines. He puts himself in a tough spot. Maybe the Q build is going to be there for the team fighting aspect and the potential defense to help. We'll see how that plays off. Again, BBJ. I prefer the auto attack and the multi-shot. BBJ playing with fire, but...
Not a ton of CC here, but he's still got to be wary as Hami dives forward. But seeing that hero advantage in the bottom lane makes this such a safe lane of pressure nicely. I mean, yeah. Sonya's a strong solo laner, but you put the 2v1 up there and it's going to work out nicely for your team in the event you don't have BBJ get picked.
And this is the way, it's a weird way that the meta kind of evolved in the open division. Again, I still go back to Donkeys R Us in that they were one of the first teams that's just like, what if we went 2-1-2'd with this double support? And it was really awkward for teams to deal with. They didn't know what to do. And we see a similar style setup here. And when you have Greymane Rhaegar, that is a lot of siege damage coming out as they hit the race to level 4 first. Shrine going to be active. First time somebody clicks on it, that's going to be HeroesHearth. We'll see how far of a lead they can get before the likes of Gul'dan and Sonya make it here.
We often discuss Sonya as this also being like her best map. She's a great solo laner. She provides huge control when it comes to fighting over the Shrine. You pop that Whirlwind. There's so many targets to potentially last hit and also get healing from. But Diablo is one of the absolute best counters, and if How steps in front of that Shrine, giving Ishbu a good target to just Shadow Charge into, you got to be careful. And there is the displacement being shown perfectly onto How, quickly becoming the focus target. Not going to die here, but that is the threat.
So many times you want to charge in and be that tank, that bully, but the positioning of Ishbu, not to overextend, to stay on that center point, rotate with his team. They got really good early control. They've managed to take down quite a few. They should be able to finish this off, but Ishbu might get finished off in the process. Now we got to see how aggressive they want to be to try and get three.
They only
here.
need 3. Yeah, and Arthlon, you can see, is looking for the Hungering Arrow. Lutano does get a huge Fel Flame to get the last few hits, and the poison trickling in. Arthlon dies to one more Fel Flame. 31 to 37 right now as McIntyre's going deep with that shield. They have not gotten a single kill during this engage because Lutano's huge control over that objective. The Fel Flames were just so perfect and on point. Well timed to deny any pickup there from HeroesHearth.
Rhaegar. He will live for now. Punisher obviously picked up here by Even and Death. Good kill onto that, and good zone control on the side of Even and Death. They made up a bit of that experience. Sonya's back up top already. They're getting the entire wall down. They're getting a bit of fort damage down. Can't ask for much more, but they did give themselves about a full level lead. Even and Death making a statement here early on.
No, that's definitely what you want. You get control of that first objective. You get the experience advantage for your team. Now you have the talent advantage for the control in the early game. Level 7 allows for a little bit more greedy plays with the Brightwing as well. If Sonya or ETC want to try to get really aggressive, that face shield does make the difference, makes it a lot safer. So we will see that instead of Cleanse. It has been the continuing story. Should be picked up. A little bit of thought given by Brightwing, but yes, does go for the face shield.
Obvious pickup there, and HeroesHearth, they're electing to pick up their Shaman camp early to make sure and get some early value push, maybe get some early experience out of it with that 2-man push that's already been up there between Greymane and Rhaegar. We'll see how that's responded to on the side of Even and Death, but depending on where the next shrine comes in, we could be seeing the Shaman camp picked up on the opposite side. Speaking of being picked up, Ishbu, gotta be careful.
He saw Hami coming down and just didn't respect it. He started mounting, thinking, I'm fine, you'll leave me alone. With the golden rotation, he almost died. If they actually were to step forward and see that he's there, he's a free kill. But he's gonna live with that sliver. Hearth back to home. Big dive here on the top board.
How under pressure, as is Frozen X. The boop on back. Crowan dives right in. That's going to be the first kill for HeroesHearth. They've also got the Shaman camp here. This will give them an opportunity to get a bit of experience. And look who's on the backside.
Yeah.
How?
McIntyre
Do we get the dismount?
on that chase, the dismount, and the boop to lock him in place. And Howe's doing everything he can to stay alive and try to trade out here, but not going to be successful. It's a 3v1, right? It's really difficult to kind of make that play.
Good turnaround there. I'm surprised that the way that Even and Death approach that. They're going to stay down here, get the bottom fort, get themselves a bit of experience, because the race for 10 might come in the middle of this shrine phase as HeroesHearth rapidly approaching level 9. Even and Death not far behind, but this Shaman camp the entire time just wrecking the top lane.
And this is kind of a risky place to fight, because if it goes poorly for you as Even in Death, you don't have anywhere safe to retreat to. You don't have a well to tap in the top lane because of the pressure that's been put on from HeroesHearth so far. And that's just an advantage that's been earned. You can see the response from Even in Death. They're like, you know what? Let's not risk it. It's not worth it. Make sure we hit level 10, concede this Punisher. We'll defend it fine. We have the global. They can deal with it.
Rhaegar showing bottom, getting a bit of XP, recognizing that with Even in Death staying mid, getting some structures down, that they're definitely getting close to 10. Brightwing's going to go down to the bottom lane. Soak 10. There's such a huge skeletal defender lead here already for HeroesHearth. We saw what happened last time, but they are giving up a lot of structure damage. But you talked about the fact that they might not have a retreat point on the top lane. What they also won't have is the retreat point in terms of where the keep's going. And recognizing that, I actually saw on the minimap, it looked like HeroesHearth was attempting to either check the Shaman camp or start it.
Yeah.
Instead, we have a keep that will now be threatened here just 6.5 minutes in.
McIntyre was considering going for the camp in the bottom lane, but he didn't have eyes on the rest of the team, so he actually was forced to just play safely because Brightwing was already there. If one more member rotates, he could die. They were also lingering around the fallen Shaman camp, considering picking that up, but a lot of safe play overall for HeroesHearth, not wanting to take any risk of potentially being caught out. And that's the power of not showing on the map. Sometimes it is the smartest thing to do because you deny your opponents the safe pickup of mercenary camps to extend the potential of a Punisher in a moment like this.
Rhaegar spent a lot of time picking his heroic. Lands on Ancestral. I was thinking, do we get the Bloodlust stream? It's not going to happen. That mid fort as Rhaegar passes on by, sees that won't be standing for very long, but Even in Death, they do have the mosh pit. We'll see how these fights play out soon. Again, I think the defense there on the side of Even in Death, very good, but we've got ourselves a game.
You know, the team fights are definitely going to be a big part of this, considering the amount of big playmakers we have. Naturally, with Sound Barrier being an element, that can deny a lot of the big Horrifies if they don't snap get the kill. So I mean, it's going to be a good one, I feel.
The composition of Even and Death speaks to invading. If you can have that split soak Brightwing, although we had Sonya top lane, if you can have that as the reveal is going to be there onto the ETC, hiding in the bush. Against this composition, you can phase shift in with the Brightwing, and this is a really weird spot because they don't have eyes on this. They take almost the entire camp. Arthlon, this is going to be a free camp going over to Even and Death.
Yeah, they're going to concede it. It's not worth the risk that's there. They're getting top, continued pressure. Fallen Shaman camp is available if Rhaegar wants to back up for that. Pushing it too much in top, they know the rotation has to be happening, so they shouldn't move too far. And even Death has the XP lead.
They have the XP lead by a sliver. It's going to extend just a bit more there as the fort falls. But as you said, getting the Shaman camp top right, because the last shrine was top, Jake, that will not spawn in the top lane again. So,
the invade?
Homicidal and team looking for the
Ishbu
invade.
needs to get in there. Phase shift is going to be there with the shield, and they're just going to concede it again. Another big win for Even in Death.
That's it. You've got the invade style with this composition. Vala showed bottom, so it's free.
Yeah, you just immediately know we have the advantage here. Now they have an even bigger advantage of level 13 for a short period of time, but that could get them maybe 20 skeletal defenders up before HeroesHearth can consider contesting that point.
And I really wonder, because that bot lane is opened up. You know, we saw the top lane opened up, but it was an early Punisher. We're looking at 9 minutes, potentially 10 minutes by the time this is picked up. HeroesHearth, they're close to 13, but not quite there yet, as we see Greymane and Rhaegar on the minimap, still top lane. Arthlon just trying to get some stacks in there on his Q build, which is about 50 stacks out of 100 there.
Look at the call. They're like, we're not contesting, we're going to pressure a keep. And they're going to get a full keep wall. This will force a response out of Brightwing at least. They should probably send more, but they're not doing it. If that camp hadn't been stolen, this opportunity would be much greater, and you'd see that keep be under heavy siege. They do at least get Gul'dan to come back, but it's at 39. They're stalling out the one more skeletal defender before they want to grab that Punisher and make the optimal play, abusing the fact that they have a global advantage of the Brightwing, and their opponents do not have that.
That's a very good point, because you have to do something. Even in Death is like, we'll do something anyways. We're just going to push with this Punisher. Bot lane Punisher coming in here. It is a frozen Punisher. Everybody on the side of HeroesHearth mostly back. Rhaegar not quite back just yet. But again, the defense with the Hungry and Arrow build will be beneficial here. Brightwing can shift in at any time. Maybe we'll see somebody pull the trigger on a mosh pit even if they can find an opportunity.
Always something scary you got to think about in these kind of moments when you're pushing under a isolated space like this. Frozen Punishers also make that, you know, you think about the Punishers, you often say, oh man, Arcane Punishers are the scariest, but in instances like this, that Frost could end up being a huge play for the ETC to follow up on. They bait it back far enough so it's going to be a non-issue here, but Ishbu doesn't want to let them just run away for free, considering stepping forward.
Both teams are having a hard time finding opportunities. The invade there, they've been opportunistic for Even in Death, but HeroesHearth, without the arsenal there of whether it was the Vala previously, the Greymane or Rhaegar, they've basically had to give everything up. They haven't been able to force anything. Instead, now they're looking for an opportunity for themselves, but Ishbu eating a lot of damage. Brightwing coming in. We've got ourselves a fight. The Horrify is now isolated. Ishbu here. The Apoc's going to go down. Hit absolutely nobody. He's got souls. That is a big loss in that team fight.
Horrify was clutch. He was way too far for an Ancestral to ever be considered. If Rhaegar tried to even go for it, he probably would have died himself. So a nice pick, and that's just going to give full map control right now to Even in Death, who have secured a level lead.
The level lead, the map control, everything in their favor. So Even in Death, 3 kills to 2, but they seem to be high impact moments.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked about this, like, you know, Diablo, he's back alive. Cool, instant respawn, but now he's infinitely more squishy when you don't have those souls. You have to run around, do your best to farm up the minions, collect those souls as Diablo, and it takes a long time, it really does. Especially later in the game, because the laning phase is the best time to get souls, naturally, because you're in the lane a lot, whereas the rest of the game, not as much.
It does make it far more difficult, and what also makes it difficult, because the next Shrine phase will be coming up very, very soon, is the talent tier disadvantage. Rhaegar and Greymane were pushing bot lane again, trying to get some pressure onto that fort, trying to find any way to get XP, but they're going to find themselves late to the party one more time. So HeroesHearth has to start making something happen. Their windows of opportunity are going to get smaller and smaller as this game goes on. And right now, you got to think that with a 13, 14-minute Punisher, potentially 16-tier advantage, it goes straight to the keep. This getting scarier.
It's getting scarier. They're making sure they're going to have 16. They will be slow to the fight, but Gul'dan and Stukov, Brightwing, all three rotating down to the bottom half for the defense, and that's actually going to leave Sonya alone at the top. If this is recognized, they could, well, I guess they're not going to be able to find anything here. It's just Diablo doing his best to isolate Homicidal. The boop is available, but Power Slide and Battery, Brightwing face shifting in, the peels have been successful. 14 total picked up, just Sonya doing that. Not the biggest of deals for a deficit for HeroesHearth.
I'm surprised they didn't commit more towards that shrine, because 15 is not that hard to make up. And now we have a potential fight coming in. You talked about the lack of souls for Ishbu, so we'll see how much effect that has. But the top shrine is the best team fighting one when you look at the things like what Arthlon's going into the Q build, and he's getting some damage there, but the polymorph, the power slide onto Ishbu, the Ancestral will land, however.
Yep, good Ancestral, but that's one heroic use. Face shield onto Hao, allowing him to be a little bit more aggressive. We see Crone immediately go into the Worgen form to retreat away. Gul'dan just peppering on that damage. Rampant Hellfire, a big moment for them. The Emerald win. Apocalypse going to try to interrupt the rest of this, but Sound Barrier giving him the space to stay in this fight. Flailing Swipe removing them a little bit, but Homicidal is being focused fairly well. Horrify has to be used. Crone and Ishbu are both so low. The poison will be sufficient with that Drain Life. Finding that kill in the phase shift. They're looking for more. The poison finishes off Greymane, and BBJ gonna live, but that is a win here for Even in Death.
It's a big win, and you've got that full level lead. You'll have a Punisher instead. They're going to come soften up this lane first. I don't know if they can do much more. They've got Gul'dan in the back. The minion wave will eat some shots, so they're softening up. They're setting up for potential into this game right now.
Yeah, they're definitely looking forward. It's 15 seconds before the next two are up in full. Diablo didn't lose his souls, right? It's only if you actually get the free respawn, so he's not going to be squishier. He'll slowly get stronger until that's back to 100. But yeah, here comes that Punisher looking for the keep. The keep's going down for sure. The game to be determined.
Game to be determined, but the odds heavily in favor of Even in Death. You see the bait over of the Punisher has been baited to the middle keep, at least momentarily, but Sonya and team are going onto the core. The shield's not necessarily falling as the Punisher's still looking to find an opportunity. It's going to jump in just a second. They've got to be careful the way they engage. It hits two people. The cleanse is going to be there. BBJ trying to go down, but BBJ gets instantly deleted.
Sound Barrier was just off cooldown at that moment. Ancestral just came off itself, and they were moments from being able to sustain a little bit longer, but that's going to be Even in Death, focusing on the core, trying to end this game. The Horrify is all but ending it. Well played. Even in Death take game one.
I must say, Even in Death looked composed throughout that entire game, and they looked a lot better than I think people anticipated. It seemed like HeroesHearth struggled to find the engagement, struggled to find the opportunities with that composition. We don't see a lot of Diablo. No. And again, I talked about the Vala build in particular, not going multi-shot. They lacked when it came to the race. They struggled when it came to finding the team fights. And so when you have that style and you can't go into the build specifically for that and you ignore the build basically focused around the objective, it showed, and it showed heavily.
And, you know, on top of that, I got to give Lutano a ton of credit because he played the Gul'dan that game, and there was the phase where there's 37 defenders picked up from HeroesHearth. There were like 3 more. That's easy. We'll throw Rhaegar in there with a lightning shield, pick up those few kills. Lutano had the perfect time Fell Flames to deny any pickups left and right, playing that Gul'dan, and that kind of gave them that momentum with that Punisher to control the space a little bit better, catch up in XP. Then they took the lead at that point with a full level advantage, and you know, Even in Death had control.
They had a lot of control. I think the final kill count 6-2. Nothing just outstanding, but winning the Punishers consistently. They all but one of the Punishers they didn't win, and there was so much pressure elsewhere that didn't really get much value. You know, HeroesHearth did a good job defending against that. They baited it over, but they had to respond. And then when that Punisher came in and stunned 2 people, you have to that timer has to be going off in your head like, hey, this thing's gonna jump soon. And it was the Arcane Punisher you talked about, the most feared one. You've got to let that know. And then the minute that hit, and the instant deletion onto the Lucio, and at that point, it was basically all she wrote.
It was also pretty black and white when you compare like the value that Diablo was having before he got picked when they looked and checked that camp. We had Battery, or I think it was the ETC. I always think of Battery as ETC, but we had ETC waiting in the bush, just kind of, hey, are you going to come look at our camp? Well, They lost. He died. Let's take a look at one of the replays here from that match. I think it might actually be that one. Yes. This is the moment where Ishbu wanted to inspect that camp and see what was going on. He has 100 souls right now, so he is super tanky. But the Horrify secluding him and just that single kill, it doesn't seem huge in the moment, but his ability to contest all the future objectives is that much less, significantly less HP.
And you called this during that play-by-play in the sense that Rhaegar was coming in, not enough range to get onto that Ancestral, and watching that replay there, you could actually see Homicidal recognizing that Rhaegar was coming in, just throws out a casual face melt. It might not have even mattered, but it was the small things that matter, and those are things, the recognition, the visibility that you have in team fights, those are things that really matter. Even in Death looked really impressive in Game 1.
I mean, we talked about it. A lot of teams are counting them out. Dreadnought's like, do not sleep on Even in Death. They've been playing in Pro League all Phase 2. They've leveled up. Let's see what battle